it's Gwenreads, and I am back making another Q&A video. So yes, I'm gonna address a couple of things. It's really late at night, and unfortunately, the lighting reflects that. It's like midnight. So I'm sorry if this is gonna bother you. I apologize. But it kind of feels like, I don't know, like a late night fireside chat, you know, because you can't see it, but I had to really improvise this lighting situation because it was too stark having just a lamp. So there's currently a pink sheet over my lamp. I'm not even kidding. So there you go. But this is going to be Q&A number 3. I'm pumped. It's not going to be as long as the other ones, which is fine because I think I can kind of ramble a little bit more. But I am going to be spoiling Air Awakens by Elise Kova, the first book, and then kind of the ending. I'm going to leave it a little bit less spoilery, but I'm sure I'm going to mention some stuff. I'm also going to mention Warcross, and I am going to spoil this ending. So if you are going to read Warcross, I highly recommend. I would wait or come back later, or just skip that part when I talk about it. I'll hold up the book, and the instant you see it, just go like, shh, you know what I mean? So, okay. Anyway, I have all my books out. My questions are all on a laptop that is draining battery fast. My charger does not work. It's a disappointing situation. So if I freak out in the middle of this video, that's because my laptop died and all of my questions have disappeared. Okay, great atmosphere, you know, great vibe to start this video off. Just really, you know, negative stuff. It's good. Alright, so the first question I'm going to be answering is how to improve a character's personality. Let me say this, I am not a professional writer. I think I have written one short story that actually that I liked and I had the courage to post. So I think one thing I realized though in that short little period of writing it was that to make a character's personality believable, you have to kind of insert yourself into that character. So if there's a quirk that you do, I don't know, for me it's like rambling or talking fast, and I stutter sometimes, I might include that to my character because I understand what it's like and I can make that more believable by adding that in. And another thing too is to not be ashamed, but to do some research. If your character is a different gender than you are, has a different sexual orientation than you have, or I don't know, is even just like different, maybe you're an introvert and you want your character to be an extrovert, do some research, really figure it out because it's gonna make the character all the more believable. And don't be ignorant as a writer. It doesn't look good. It really doesn't. Just adding that extra, like, however long it takes to learn about that, it's great. We have some really, really amazing people on Books Writing Amino that do that, and they do it really, really well by researching. And I read a lot about, you know, asexual characters and stuff, and I really appreciated that as it taught me a lot. So definitely do research first and foremost. The next question talks about changing the ending of one book and why. This one I definitely have lots I could ramble off because there have been plenty of series that have ended in which books have been nearly thrown against the wall. But when I really truly think about it, there really isn't a book that I would change ending-wise because, to be honest, I kind of think a book ends the way it ends, and that sounds really stupid, but I think a writer chooses to end the novel because it's how they see it, and for me to be like, I'm so against that, lacks perspective just because like how they saw it end is how it is going to end. And I don't really have a reason to change that. I think it's kind of cool seeing how other people envision a book to end, or who a character will end up with, or how this certain plot works out. So for that question, I really don't have one in mind, because at the end of the day, a book ends the way it ends, and us as readers, unfortunately, are subjected to having to witness atrocities sometimes. Alright, the next question is if I have any other ideas for the YouTube channel. As of right now, I don't. I did create a sub-series at one point in time that I deleted because the quality wasn't good, and I was also new to the whole YouTube thing, so figuring out how to edit videos that was already posted wasn't a good idea because moral of the story is that I deleted it. So ever since then I've been a little bit hesitant on making other videos, and it's not only that, but I also don't think I'm very camera friendly. I tend to ramble, I shake a lot. I don't know, camera, the whole thing isn't for me yet. I'm definitely digging the blogging thing, and I want to get more into that on Books Writing Amino, so to be honest, I am focusing a lot of my energy there right now. But maybe sometime in the future I'll be a little bit cooler with this whole YouTube thing, and if I get better lighting and can have more time to film during the day, I definitely see it as being a window I would be interested in opening. So this next question talks about what would you call your favorite book of all time? this one again, I feel like I'm not really answering these questions because I'm like going around them. But like I don't mean to, I really don't. But for this one, it really depends on my mood and like how I'm feeling for the day. Because if I'm feeling a little bit more like whimsical and like magical, you know, I would definitely go with my jam. Let me dig it out of the pile. Air Awakens, because this book opened me up to why I am a reader. It made me just fall in love with reading even more. They were such an adventure for me, and an emotional one at that. And I really connected with Vala a lot, and I loved her character. I just thought that her character development was really, really well done. And I completely dug it. I loved it. And I just, yeah. So fantasy-wise, I would go with this one. However, let me re-dig in the pile. If I'm feeling a little bit more like realistic, you know what I mean? Just kidding, that's not relatable. I would go with Without Merit by Colleen Hoover, because this book hit me so hard. It was actually bought by a friend and given to me, which was super cool. I totally respected that. It was nice because like she thought that, you know, I could really relate to it, and I definitely did, because I highlighted and I just happened to flip to a page where I wrote relate, because I do. This book would just hit me really hard. I needed it because there was a time in my life in which I was going through some stuff, and just to see it written on paper and to know that I wasn't alone during those struggles was really, really nice. And it opened me up to the whole concept of what is perspective and why it's important in life. And it made me do some things in which I probably wouldn't have done. I reached out to some people that I never would have thought I would have reached out to, and definitely created some closure, and I really needed that. So this book changed my life. It changed my life. I did a lot of things that I wouldn't have done without reading it. So in some ways, I would go with this one, but it depends if I'm feeling a little bit like, I don't know, emotional, I guess. So yeah, it really depends on my mood. If you ask me one day, I might say this, I might say that, and I might even say something completely different, like something nonfiction. Who knows? Maybe a book about frogs. I don't know. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna pause that. My computer definitely died, so a little intermission there. You know what I'm saying? You know? Okay, so we're on a notepad. This is just getting better and better as the night goes on. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so the next question is, what kind of ending is better? And I think this is from a reader's perspective, but I could be wrong. I'm probably going to go with the reader's perspective because I feel more confident answering that way. But is it going to be one with closure, one unexpected, or one that's left open? And this one also depends on the book, because if you are reading one that's like really intense as a plot, it can be difficult as a reader to have like another unexpected or open-ended book, because you're like, oh my gosh, I was just hit by one thing after another, after another, after another. Why am I holding this pencil? And it's like, that can be so overwhelming for a reader to just have this like, and then who knows where she went, you know? It's like, oh my gosh. So having one that just kind of like smooths out, and I mean that more of like a collective series, if you're into series, like for Air Awakens, if this would have ended open-ended, I don't know if I could handle it. That would have been too much. So it ended very nicely, in my opinion, and just kind of smooth. A little bit open-ended, like what can happen in this beautiful future they have created. I totally dig that. That was really cool. So yeah, answering that one, it depends on the book and just the overall intensity of the plot, because you have some where it's like, sure, it's a little bit intense. Every book has that climax, of course. But some books just kind of are like that, where it's like morally maybe, it's kind of like, well, you know, they stood up for this and this, and this is gonna, you know, what will happen in the future? Will the world get better? Like, you know, let's, fingers crossed, honestly, like, fingers freaking crossed. So for that one, it just depends on the book. My favorite classic. I actually have not really been a classic kind of person. I typically like to read new age stuff. But this year I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I didn't think I would like it, but I fell in love. It was really, really good. I probably wouldn't have read it if I wouldn't have had like a teacher to assist me with it, because it would have been a little bit hard for me to interpret stuff, because at times it can be a little bit like philosophical. But I will say that it was really, really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it from beginning to end. I didn't really sense a drag at all. Some people have complained that Frankenstein drags. I didn't think so. I thought it was really good. I can't really say that I related to any of the characters specifically, but I did really appreciate the whole concept of, let's change perspectives. I'm going to show you why this character is good, this character is bad, and then vice versa. That was really, really cool. Mary Shelley also was really, really young when she wrote this. I think she was my age. I'm 17. I think she was 17 or 18. super inspiring to all of us aspiring writers out there, because it doesn't matter how old you can be, you can make an impact on the world like Frankenstein did. There's actually a quote in this. I believe Frankenstein said something along the line, or Frankenstein's monster says something along the lines of, "I dared to be happy." I don't know why that just hit me really hard. I don't know, I was reading it in class and I'm like, oh, I'm like tearing up. I'm like, that's so real. Like, you know what I mean? But like that has inspired me to just go out there and just like be happy in a world full of sadness, because let me tell you, the world can be kind of sad. Next one talks about my favorite genre, which, goodness, it fluctuates. I kind of have my days where I'm like, yes, fantasy all the way. I love it. I stand it. I can't read anything else. And then I'll have other days where I'm like, I'm feeling a little bit more real, you know? This year especially, I've been reading more realistic novels. I actually just finished Confess by Colleen Hoover. Let me tell you, it was hard to get through. It was super romance-oriented, which I know it was going to be, but I really wanted to read it for the plot because it was about art, and I dig it. But if the plot wouldn't have been about art, there was no way I could have gotten through that. It was so romancy, and if that is your thing, I 100% love you and support you, and I want you to read that book. I sincerely want you to. But for me personally, I wasn't a fan. I'm not a big romance person, so that one is hard. But then again, I liked the whole art concept. So there will be days when I really like realistic fiction, and there will be days when I'm feeling more fantasy-like. I am a sucker for fairy stories, which is why I grabbed this off the shelf because it came out this year. It's The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's about fairies and such. And if you can't tell, I really, really love them. I don't know if my pixie cut gives that away. I mean, sorry, it's a little expected ending. Okay. But no. In all honesty, I do love fairy books. I love fantasy books in general. I just think they're so interesting, and it kind of transports you out of this world, you know, because sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming, and to have an escape that's so noticeable that it just feels kind of good, that can be really nice. It's kind of like a form of therapy. You can be a fairy or a witch or whomever you want to be, you know? You can be that person for a little bit. So fantasy definitely comes handy sometimes. The majority of the books that are my favorites tend to be fantasy or sci-fi. Okay, this next one is implant yourself in one book as you are, and why would you choose that book? So right off the bat, we can get rid of dystopian novels because I don't think I would make it. I am not very like outdoorsy. I don't really know how to survive on my own. I am very dependent on modern day technology, including my navigation. Couldn't drive without it. Would probably head for the middle of nowhere without it sometimes. I'm also very dependent on just like social interaction with people through my phone. I feel like I'd get really lonely in a dystopian world. I don't know, things would just get really sad. So we're gonna cancel those ones out right away. But I think I would do really well in a magical world. I just feel like I could be a little fairy. I mean, again, I have the haircut, so we're already one off the list for that. But not only that, but I just feel like I would be open to that kind of stuff, and I feel like I could like legitimately see myself. So I've always wanted to be part of Harry Potter. I am 17, so I would be graduating Hogwarts this year. But if I could like go back in time, you know, I totally would go to Hogwarts. I feel like me and Cedric could be really good Hufflepuff friends. I've always loved him. So, you know, that could work out really well for me. Or even like, you know, living in the Court of Thorns and Roses. It's a little bit scary sometimes, for sure. But I took a quiz and I got the day court. So, I mean, I could just live in the daylight all the time. And I could do really well there too. So, that one, I think I would choose between those two depending on, you know, how I'm feeling. Next one talks about, do I like interactive stories? For this one, I don't really have an answer to. I've never really gone to that route before for reading. Nothing wrong with it at all. I think it's really cool. I remember being like in 7th grade and I was on Tumblr, I think. I think I was on Tumblr at that point in my life. For a little bit I was. But I saw like in 1D, an interactive story, like One Direction, you know, and I think it was like, Harry's your boyfriend and you go on tour. And I remember thinking like, that's really interesting. You know, like I wasn't bashing it, but I also wasn't like super into it myself. But over time, as I've learned more about that whole process, it's intense. Like being a writer for those kind of books is super intense because you have to make it immersive. Like you have to make the reader feel like they're actually there. And that takes a ton of skill. So I am totally in support of those. I don't know if role play falls into that, like when you role play as like a certain character or like you're in a certain book. I'm not sure if that goes in that group, but if it does, also kudos to those individuals because, again, it takes a lot of creativity to come up with that kind of stuff and to make an author's work your own by twisting it a little bit and, like, you know, I don't know, I just think it's really cool and I think it's a great outlet for people. I totally support that. So we actually do have a little bit of a community for that in Books Writing Amino. One point we definitely did. And I've always appreciated it. I always thought it's really cool. So if any of you guys are into that, I think it's amazing, and I support you in all your writing endeavors. The last question of the video is, would you ever consider doing spoken poetry or reading your writing out loud? For this one, I am going to say no for this. It's not that I wouldn't like to, I definitely would. I just don't feel like I'm super comfortable yet, and I feel like I haven't really reached that stage of being able to. Maybe someday, definitely, but for now my writing is just kind of stay between myself, or maybe between Books Writing Amino, because I have posted some of my work, but a lot of it does get kind of personal, and I'm not really sure if me reading it out loud is a place in which I feel like I'm ready, that I'm at. But again, like, I'm completely open to that idea someday, because I think it's amazing, and I think it makes the writing feel like, to actually see what someone's thinking and like their tone and like the inflection of their voice can really alter the way that you hear something read aloud, and read in general. So great question, actually, fabulous, because maybe someday for sure I might really look into doing that. So I think after that question, that wraps this whole thing up. I like doing this kind of videos. Thank you so much to every single lovely person who gave me a question. I had fun compiling it, even though my computer died, but hey, that's cool. This notebook worked just as well. And actually it says, all I need is coffee and adventure. That's so relatable. You know what I'm saying? We all love coffee, right? So yeah, anyway, thank you so much for watching, for taking time out of your day to hear me ramble and talk about books. Again, my name is Gwenreads from Books Writing Amino, and I am so honored to be able to make these videos for you guys. If you haven't heard about that application, it's really fun. It's for readers and writers alike to blog about their passions, and once you join, you'll figure out the ropes, and we'll be happy to have you there. So I will see you guys on Books Writing Amino for a weekly event coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. Much love, and happy reading and writing, of course.